Ladies and gentlemen, this stream is now in session. Obi-Wan362, Gamer in Law presiding. And welcome back to... Why is this screen black? Deactivate. Reactivate.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Hey, Obi.
Crimson, welcome to the courtroom. Thank you so much for that 37 months. How are you doing? Do. 9th of January, this is Buria First Class Cabin Passageway. Some more progress on your Kingdom Hearts level 1. Which game are you on at this point? Wish we hadn't been thrown out like that. We should manage to find some clues as to what the Speckled Band might be. We didn't manage to investigate at all. We did, just not the right thing. Dream Drop? Ooh. Level 1. Critical. Yeah, that sounds gross. And I imagine that we won't be able to for a while longer. Never get past that sailor guarding the door. He's clearly glaring at us, as if to say, don't even think about it. Oh, wait a minute! What is it? Well, what happened to our great detective friend? Where'd he go? Oh yes, he completely disappeared. When did he do that? He slipped away as quietly as the wind. Now before ensuring these were securely back on my wrists. The loser. I don't know if there's anything. That door leads to the second class area. It's locked. I can't open it. No, well, that stands to reason. No one wants to let the murderer escape. She gave me a very stern look when she said that. Okay, I think we've... Hey, buddy. Really wish we'd had a chance to look around in Miss Pavlova's cabin. What's up, Stroganoff? What? Why you look like that? You want something? Yes. Maybe you want me to throw you out again, no, definitely not that. Next time I have to throw you out, I show you where lobsters spend winter. Understand? No. Understand. You should steer clear of him until he's forgotten my face. I don't think he'll ever forget your face, Naruhodo-san. Yeah, I don't imagine there's a lot of people who forget faces of murderers. First class cabin number 1. Yes, that's our cabin. Not our cabin. It's Kazuma-sama's. Sorry? Your accommodation is confined to the wardrobe inside the cabin. You want to make a stowaway feel small, don't you? Small as the wardrobe I've been calling home. Anyway, I wonder if Inspector Hosanaga has managed to uncover any new clues. Yes, we should probably find him and ask. Really? All that for that last, just that last part? Hello? January, this is Buria, first class cabin number 1. Looks like they're still investigating in here. Yes. On that subject, I wonder if Inspector Hosonaga is unscathed. What do you mean, unscathed? Sure you haven't forgotten, have you, Naruhodo-san? I have, apparently. Do you remember what he said about allowing you out of this cabin to investigate? No. That was like weeks ago. I talked to the captain about it. He said he'd lay his life on the line for you. Oh. Yeah. I'm sure he was exaggerating. Let's see what he has to say for himself. Might have some new information for us. Never know. Why is there a... Okay, that's fine. Everything's fine. So the rules of passage for travel aboard the SS Buria. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in the cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. So bring your pet on board, and Miss Pavlova has broken the rules. But Crimson, how far in to Dream Drop are you? Friend, isn't she? Yeah. We don't know what form this friend takes as yet. Most certain that whatever it is, it's inside the traveling case in her cabin. Well, yes, obviously. A friend. It's more to this than it seems, I think. You. Where did you go? Sorry, Why? Who gave you permission for this? Well, Seaman Osanaga did. That new Japanese, was it? Okay. You're not... Okay, that's pretty good. Wait, do you have to do the special? You have to do the secret boss for you to count it? Later, I will roll him into a ball and throw him in a cold room. Sorry, Hosonaga. Young Xehanort in the Armored Ventus Nightmare. Okay. Go back to guard the door. Hosonaga doesn't find himself in too much trouble on our account. He's really gone out of his way to help us, hasn't he? When we get back to Japan, we'll have to take him for a steak at La Carnival. Could be a very long time from now, Naruhodo-san. Yeah, given the fact I'm definitely going to prison. All books provided for the passengers occupying this cabin, neatly arranged on the shelf. They were all over the place when we first looked around, if you remember. Oh yeah, you tried them up, didn't you? You have to look after the ship's property. Only behavior in the cabins leads to damage. It really wasn't me who knocked them over. Right? Well, anyway, I feel much better now that they're neatly lined up. Can't relax when things are untidy. You're not doing the optional bosses? Okay, that's fair. It'd be real rough going through all that and also doing the optional bosses. So it's clear that these letters were written with the ink that was somehow spilt on the floor. They spell the Russian word for wardrobe. It does seem to be an unambiguous pointer to you, Naruhodo-san, as you were sleeping in there. To be truly unambiguous, it should have just spelled out my name, don't you think? Well, either way, one fact remains. It's hard to imagine that Kazuma-sama would have written his last words, or word, in Russian. Exactly! Which begs the question of who did write it. I mean, I feel like you had to. Crimson, it's not much of a challenge. It greatly reduces the challenge if you do New Game Plus. It's where Kazuma spent his final moments, writing his diary. 3 a.m. I hear a faint whistling sound. 1:35 a.m. Looks like some sort of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill. 1:37. I have died. This page. It's almost impossible to believe that he's gone. Seems someone left us a valuable clue in these words. I'm sure of it. To solve this mystery, Naruhodo-san. We will. Maybe. Just important question. Have we checked the drawers of the wardrobe, not just the middle part? Grinding to get the spirits in it, loading those up. That makes sense. That seems exceedingly tedious. Joins Miss Pavlova's cabin. Yes, that's right. In just a few minutes before he died, Kazuma saw something emerging from it. A speckled band, as he described it. If only Miss Pavlova had been able to shed some light on it. She seemed as baffled as we are. Yeah, I wonder if she's telling us everything, though. I'm not sure. I know most people aboard would say the same about me, but there's something about that woman that didn't sit right with me. You know, with the highest death count, but it is the one that's been the most draining. That makes sense. Yep, there's a reason we waited. Ah, you're back. Inspector? What happened to you? Your face is... Please, don't worry about me. About it. They're just scratches. Made by a bear? I told the captain that I'd given you permission to investigate. He told me he'd pummeled me with his fists and then tossed me overboard. I'm sorry, what? The pummeling was over in a flash. So decided against throwing me overboard. So it was nothing, really. Looks like he wasn't joking when he said he'd lay his life on the line if he had to. Well, thanks to your efforts, we now know a little about the neighboring cabin. Yes, so I understand. Oh. Bumped into a man claiming to be a great detective a little while ago. I think his name was something like Sherlock Holmes. I don't think he was German, though. Airlock. Ah, that explains it. Should we compare notes then? I can tell you what we found out. Yes, let's do it. Aww. Is that a great detective? Oh, Mr. Sholmes was here, was he? Yes, he seemed to be enjoying himself a little too much as he crept about on the floor investigating. But then he suddenly left, so he must have become bored. Same thing at all? Actually, now you mention it, yes. Just one thing, but he practically shouted it. It's shoe polish! Was all he said. Okay. I feel like I need to play like one of those, crap, what was that game called? Where you had to like say the words to try and make it figure out the words that they sounded like if you said them a certain way. Because the commercial was all like, I mull a machine. And it's like, I'm a love machine. Love machine. Like, whatever that. I was just making up words behind me. Just when he... Mad Gab, that was it. So when he was over there by the piece of broken glass. Do you see? Okay, interesting. So with the brick-colored mark, do you think? I would just like to point out that the close-up picture looks very different than the wide-angle shot. Like, very different. Yes, that must be it. Did Mr. Sholmes know it's shoe polish? That leaves me cold, I'm afraid. I have no idea. What is this, Susanto-san? Well, Kazuma-san was wearing leather shoes with a very dark tan hue. Dark tan? It's a dark brownish red, then. It's a little like the color of red wine, but darker. I often repaired them for him. Oh. Does this mean... This mark was made by the polish on Kazuma's shoes as they scuffed on the floor. Mark on the floor has been entered into court record. Okay. Cabin next door. What? Nikolina Pavlova? She's in the cabin next door? Oh, you know who she is? Please. Self-respecting ballet fan wouldn't know that graceful angel. Aww. Please don't die, sir. Oops. I think I upset him there. Well, that tells us the neighboring cabin is unrelated to the case, at least. I'm sorry, what? Oh? How? Because angels don't go around committing crimes, do they? He's got me. He got me. Oh, wait. They do sometimes commit murder, though. Or they're at least sent to commit murder. That's just in the Bible. Now I've definitely upset him. Inspector, has your investigation in here proved fruitful? If I'm honest, there's very little more I can do. Our duty is to make sure the scene isn't disturbed, ready to hand over to the Hong Kong police. So I'm just keeping watch here, trying not to take my eyes off the job. Yeah, also, Lucifer was an angel. So, like... We're just saying. I see. Ah, there's one thing. I have a small piece of new information for you. Oh, well, thank you for taking this long to finally bring it up. Oh, what you got? Do tell us, Inspector, please. Some new information you have, Inspector. It's this. Various medical officers finished his examination of the body and managed to obtain the report. Okay. Postmortem Report? Aw, poor Kazuma. So, what was the cause of death? Why don't you tell us, murderer? Damage to the cervical vertebrae is what's written in the report. Damage to the cervical vertebrae. His neck was broken? It's not what I was expecting. So it seems so. No obvious wounds or other signs of injury. So at first, I think they were considering poison. Turns out they found no trace of poison in his system at all. I feel like it's different than how I remember the story going. I thought the Sherlock Holmes version, Speckled Band, was a poisonous snake. Was it a constrictor? Well, what weapon was used then? Who knows? Nothing has been found as yet. But the fact that there are no signs of a wound suggests it may have been a blunt object. Something that wouldn't leave a mark. A blunt object would leave a mark. If you hit somebody with something hard enough to break their neck, you're leaving a mark. That's just science. Body's nerves run through the spine to the brain. Strong enough impact to the neck could induce death. It's a possibility. No obvious wound would be left. Really hard with the pillow. That's it. Case closed. He died in a very aggressive pillow fight. Poor Kazuma. I have a second copy of the report. If it might be useful, you are welcome to have it. Really? Are you sure? Yes, it's fine. I trust you. Aww, he trusts us. He likes us. He really likes us. After all, if I didn't trust you, I'd never have agreed to you leaving this cabin in the first place, would I? Ah, yep, fair point. Giving the cause of death as a cervical spine injury. So I can tell you at this stage. I should return to my post. The crewman's eyes are boring into the back of my head. So that kind of takes away my thought was he wrote wardrobe because he put the snake in the wardrobe. But I was thinking he'd been poisoned by the snake. Not that it was a constrictor. So it's a constrictor, he can't exactly put the snake in the wardrobe then. Yes, it might be for the best. Thank you. Poor Inspector. You look exhausted. Oh, no. Well. Aw. I feel terrible that I failed to protect Asogi-san. It was my responsibility. Aw. Of course, pain is nothing compared to yours. You were his friends. Truth is, I seem to have had a heavy head ever since I woke this morning. Heavy head? That's interesting. Mine's still throbbing too. Okay, I don't think there's anything for us to find. Oh. The shoe polish again. Look at such a beautiful color, this glass. So whatever it was broken clean in two. The other half is nowhere to be seen. And there's the brick-colored mark. Which is shoe polish, according to that great detective you seem to know all about. This must be from Kazuma-sama's shoes. Maybe. What I'd like to know is, how can the detective be so sure it's shoe polish and not something else? He's a great detective, of course. Yeah, like that's not a reason. Okay. Go back out here, I guess. Yep. Seems like we did it. Look, Naruhodo-san! Seems Stroganoff is gone. Strong enough? Burly Russian sailor is always crossing his arms and glaring at us. Ugh. Those Russian names are impossible to remember. Tra-la-la. Did you hear that? Sound like someone's singing. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. Did it the great detective way. This caroling. Know that lark-like voice? Never mind that now. It's a golden opportunity for us. Yes, you're right. We must seize it. Let's get inside Miss Pavlova's cabin. We'll can and investigate. Definitely. Before that stringy knot crewman comes back. Stroganoff, not stringy knot. Are you sure? I'm not sure. Y'all, the box is open. Pandora's box is open. Pavlova isn't back yet. Such a son. Oh, where'd she go? Hey, what are you doing? Those are her private things. It's not a moment to waste, Naruhodo-san. Let's investigate as quickly as we can. So you're right. For Kazuma's sake. Not just for Kazuma-sama. Ooh, yeah, what do you mean? Can't be long until we arrive at port in Hong Kong. I don't want you to be in those handcuffs when we get there. Really? You care? You really care? Let's solve this case, Naruto-san. By ourselves if we have to. Yeah, we will. Okay, let's... Naruto-san, are you there? Sorry? I'm right here, yeah? Why? Oh, good. I thought you might have climbed into the wardrobe when I wasn't looking. There's no place like home. Wow. Wow. Believe me, I have some strange compulsion to jump inside every wardrobe I see, you know? Well, anyway, I'm not sure anyone could fit inside this one. It's full of beautiful outfits. Suppose they're all stage costumes. Those was rather hoping we might find Miss Pavlova's friend hiding in there, but no such luck. Okay. Cabin door is the same simple sort of bolted latch that our cabin door has. Strung across, there's no way anybody could enter the cabin from outside. It's not particularly heavy-duty bolt, is it? Still, wouldn't slide across of its own accord, would it? No, the door is made of metal, so there's no chance of trickery using magnets that unbolted from the outside. You know. It seals up perfectly, too. Stop any seawater coming in. The method you told me of passing a thread through a crack around the closed door, either. Nope. There's been a lot of tricks for opening doors. I'm trying to see why they suspect me. That and you know you were in a wardrobe. Oh my! Miss Pavlova's case is open! Uh-huh. It's completely empty inside. One of the great detective's great deduction. She was hiding her special friend in there. Yes, a friend that she had to keep secret. I wonder what kind of animal it was. More to the point, where is it now? Suppose her cabin has a waste paper basket. Should I have a little look and see what's been thrown away? Our Hoda-san. It's poor etiquette to go sifting through someone's rubbish, you know. Uh-huh. It's gonna be like, oh, piece of rubbish now. However, it's just special circumstances, I think. Exactly! We have no choice. Time to go waste paper diving. Not anything in here at all. Oh, well, that's a little disappointing. Okay. Keeps her waste paper basket clear. Just a few books on the desk. Nothing else by the looks of it. Well, only ran away from Belly last night. She's hardly occupied this cabin for any time at all. It's true. I wonder what kind of books she likes to read. Let me see. Yes, I see. It seems that Miss Pavlova enjoys reading books written in Russian. Gosh dang it, Susanto. Thanks. I think I probably already knew that one. It's rude to ask too much of people, Naruhodo-san. Kindly remember that. Yeah, okay. It seems this teapot is empty. Natural conclusion that the Russians are very thirsty people. Or, because Miss Pavlova only came into this cabin last night, she hasn't had the chance to make any tea yet. I mean, it could be either. Somebody that they're excessively thirsty. I'd lay 1,000 to 1 on it. Rather obstinate, aren't you, Naruhodo-san? wonder what this little saucer's doing on the floor. Yeah, doesn't look like it's been dropped. Like it was put there liberally. Huh, do you think there could be a leak in the roof just above here? Oh my gosh. What? A leak. Is this ship quite safe? I'm sure that even if there's a little leak in the roof, doesn't mean the whole ship is going to sink. No, you're right. Of course you're right. She's really trying to show herself, isn't she? Like, for reals. This ventilator connects Cosmo's cabin next door. So a full shipbuilder must be open a ventilator into another room. Ah, maybe. So if there's a gas leak next door, the occupant of this cabin would notice and raise the alarm. Or occupants of both cabins would die of gas poisoning. Last night, Consumer wrote that he saw a speckled band coming out of this ventilator. Keep weapons or the dangerous objects in the cabins, and also no pets. Yeah. So Miss Pavlova realized that she needed to keep the contents of her case a secret after she read this. Her special friend, I mean. I wonder where her friend has disappeared to now. Probably having fun exploring the ship, I imagine. Hope Seaman Stroganoff doesn't find it and throw it overboard. Why would you even put that out in the world? Oh, yeah. Oh, so do I. Alright. Yep, I think that's all we left. Books are toppled over together. Look, every single one. That's a god of the sea, perhaps? He's toppled too, though. It's like the same as the bookcase next door. Kazuma's cabin. Perhaps. Perhaps Miss Pavlova was practicing a difficult ballet pose and fell against the bookcase? I don't know. Would she really be practicing ballet on the same night she ran away from her ballet company? Must have been you. You lost your temper and knocked them all over in a fit of rage. Wait a minute. Not everything bad that happens on this ship is because of me, you know. Set them all straight again in here too. This ray. Cool. You tidy that up. See anything else? Um. Like. Like. Completed. There. Aha, this thing. Oh, these next to the bed in Kazuma's cabin too. Yes, it's a bell cord. I can't resist. She barely hesitated there. She gave it a good tug too. No, I didn't actually expect anyone to come. I don't want them to. We're trying to investigate here. Okay, that time I think we got everything. Oh! What you doing there, Sholmesy? Oh, Mr. Sholmes, look! You never know where he's going to turn up next, do you? He's stealing a look at something he sings to himself. Tra-la-la-lira-lira-lie. Did it the great detective way. Still singing. Think he hasn't noticed this? Or something in extremely high spirits? Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when the yard bit off more than it could chew. Through it all, there was doubt. It's lucky Herlock was about. Excuse me, Herlock. Solved it all and stood tall. Did the great detective way. Mr. Sholmes, please. Your attention is being requested. Was you want to fight? Huh? Honestly, I don't pick a fellow when he's singing. He's just about to reach the climactic finish. Sorry, but you're never going to stop, so I figured now is a good time as any. Very nearly dropped you to the floor with one of my famous right hooks. I get the picture. Now, could you just put your fists down? Mr. Sholmes? Oh. Examining before we interrupted you. Ah, yes, that. I was immersed in the study of the ship's log. It's penned by the stockily built crewman who's usually on guard here. Yes, ship's log. Did you find anything useful from it? Well, after 2 a.m. this morning, the majority of the entries are blank. Which means that there is nothing to report. Nothing of note happened. So, Oh, truly are a student from the land of the rising sun. You've been utterly blinded by it. I'm sorry, what? Your logic, my boy, is inverted. I'm sorry, what? Pages and all shall become clear. Seen the same crewman stands entirely in its first-class passageway. Most religious practice of recording nothing to report every half an hour. He writes that every 30 minutes? Nothing to report. Precisely. Put simply, Simon writes nothing to report when there's just that. And yet, ship's log from last night is largely blank. Didn't even write nothing to report. Yes, there were circumstances afoot last night which led to the seaman being absent from his post. Post-haste. What kind of circumstances? What happened? So significant that it caused the seaman to forget his regular habit of describing nothing to report in the log. There's important details I would stake my life on it. Just log the ship's log in your mental file. Oh, children, stake my life on it. You must log the ship's log in your mental file. Okay. Now that detection is worthy of a great detective. You're starting to understand what my way is, I see. Makes Shomes Shomes. Brilliance! Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. Ouch, ouch. What is it? Are you hurt? He laughed too hard. Oh, don't worry yourself. Seemed to be afflicted with a throbbing head this morning for some reason. Nothing more. Why does everybody have a headache? Well, my friends, till our next encounter. Wait, you're gonna help us solve this one? He's still singing to himself. Here as he wanders off down the passageway. Something wrong, Sada-san? You seem lost in thought. Well, I feel the same way. Unexpected. Sorry, what? Ever since I woke this morning, I've had something of a headache. Sort of continuous throbbing. Huh. Everything but the door. Rico, I had one just a minute ago. Whatever. I know that's just a 2D flat picture, but Not surprised. Oh, no, I want to. I assume we want to go here? I'm not real sure. Oop! Oop! Oh! Oh no! Oh, butts. What's that? That's it. That's how we die. Shut down the engines immediately. Vessel sighted at quarter-mile 4. Full stop. Hard to starboard. All hands brace for impact. Cool. Unexpected. I think we're about to crash into another ship. I'm sorry, we're what? Oh. I can't stand. Hold on to me. Son, are you alright? Are you injured at all? I think I'm fine. Thank you, Naruhodo-san. We avoided a collision. I think. Yeah, ship has come to a stop. My goodness, what about you, Naruhodo-san? Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Hello? Is anybody in there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like Inspector Hasanaga. You in there, Naruhodo-san? Bolt the door, quickly! What? The bolt? Oh, look at that! Door's bolted. Did you do that, Susanto-san? No, I didn't touch it. That's strange. How did... And... all the books. Just like they were before again. Naruhodo-san, aren't you going to open the door and let the inspector in? I better tie this place up first. No? Our violent emergency stop had solved one mystery at least, in a very vivid way. But I knew that what awaited us on the other side of the cabin door would not be pleasant. I hurried around tidying up the cabin with a new sense of foreboding in my heart. I'm tired, but we must go further. After January, Buria, Miss Pavlova's cabin. Somehow, the door of the cabin we were in ended up bolted after we made an emergency stop. Susanto-san took a deep breath and gently slid back the bolt. You! What are you doing in Miss Pavlova's quarters? Ah, you both look unhurt. Good. Yeah, we're fine, thank you. What on earth happened? Something about how we were going to collide with another ship? Yes, it appears to have been a false report, though. Huh? Yeah, how does that happen? It's a dense fog outside, so it's extremely difficult to see. Someone must have thought he saw a ship ahead. Really? I assume not. This person obviously triggered the alarm, and that's why we made an emergency stop. Everything is chaos. Passengers are screaming, crew are running everywhere. This first class area is the only quiet part of the ship at the moment. Oh, I see. Someone triggered the alarm? Does that mean... Did someone press that button outside? You wicked intruder! Dressed all in black! You are the devil! What? I call a lot of things, but... Devil's the first. You opened my traveling case. How could you? Nope. Didn't touch that. Nah, didn't touch that. That's right, Miss Pavlova. It was already open when we came into your cabin. Inspector. Huh? Arrest this man. I know he did it. He is a criminal. Is it not enough that he has killed a man?
Da! And is a stowaway as well. If Vixen promises not to steal chicken, do you believe?
Take him away. He's a trespasser as well as everything else.
Stowing away, trespassing, killing. She is right. You are devil.
Y'all are rude.
Oh my god. There is a cell below deck. Throw him in. Tomorrow we dock in Hong Kong, and we give you straight to police.
Wait. Cell? Really? Please, Inspector Hosonaga, is there nothing you can do? This is a Russian vessel. We really have no jurisdiction here. After my last effort to appeal to the captain's good nature, I think I'm out of options. This is terrible. This is a real crisis. We gotta find a solution. Immediately. The frick! Yep, I don't see anything. What the... What are you doing up there? Mr. Sholmes? Naturally, I was analyzing what a weight of 20,000 rubles feels like on one's head. Have I not told you that as a detective, it's my business to know what other people do not? This isn't mere tomfoolery, my boy. Oh, no, no. Why are you hanging from that hook? Isn't it obvious? To properly assess the weight of the 20,000 rubles, naturally. We should determine if it would bend that conceited-looking hook on the wall, so full of brag and bounce. What? Why are you shadow boxing? Stop it! I never know whether to take this man seriously or not. You again. The great detective. Ah, Inspector. Confess I've been looking for you. I have something to report to you most urgently. Well, you might try looking for me somewhere other than a hook on the wall next time. Oh, Hosonaga.
What is to report? Speak.
An urgent report from a great detective can mean but one thing. Yes. The case of the curious murder that took place last night here on this vessel, the steamship Buria, has been solved. By me, naturally. What? Really? Yes, I have eliminated all of the possibilities. No other explanations exist. So, allow me to illuminate all your minds. Oh boy. For I'm about to reveal my great detective's greatly admired great deduction to the case. Son of a nerve herder. Ha! You have solved it. Even Hedgehog understands this case. We all knew who was responsible for killing Student Boy this morning when we found a criminal in wardrobe. It is a stowaway. He has handcuffs to prove it. Sir? He didn't do it. Trouble is, there doesn't appear to be anyone else who could have killed the victim. Because as everyone knows, the cabin door is bolted shut from the inside. That means the culprit must be someone who was inside the cabin. Yes, that's what's called a locked room mystery in detective stories. I feel like, given where this plot has come from, that seems a bit on the nose. Also, we've now proven that they didn't have to be in the room. Da! Locked room. That is point. The room was locked. Well, can't deny that. There's no way the bolt could have been drawn across from outside the cabin. You're all quite mistaken. The cabin next door is not a so-called locked room at all. Okay, let's just do this painfully slowly. Oh yes, there is another entrance. An entrance used last night by the culprit in order to gain access to the cabin despite the bolted door. What other entrance? Never discovered one. Why? It gapes open, mouthed at you even as we speak. The wardrobe? Oh. The ventilator, man. Okay. Sure. The ventilator? You think this is funny? And you laughed. I cannot even put my arm through that hole. That's because your arms are as thick as tree trunks. Alright. You're suggesting that the culprit entered and left the victim's cabin through that tiny opening. It's not possible. But it is. And last night, the victim even witnessed the intruder in the act of passing through the ventilator. Are we really gonna go through all this just for him to get the deduction wrong and have to fix it? Is that really what's gonna happen? Mr. Sholmes, do you mean... referring to the words Kazuma-sama wrote in his diary? Can you hear a faint whistling sound? And then what looks like some sort of speckled band? Precisely, my dear madam. Okay. What does it mean? What's a speckled band? The answer to that particular conundrum is in this very cabin. What are you punching at? Mr. Sholmes? What are you doing? There's a distinct element of danger, but fear not, I am ready. What I'm about to expose for you all to see will shock you to your cores. Behold! He's about to die. Stay strong enough, honey. There's a snack on your face. Now I'm going to introduce you all to the band. The Speckled Band. That's a snack. Indubitably. Yep. 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 Mr. Sholmes, just one thing. Pray, what troubles you? Well, that's a snake. Isn't really speckled, is it? It's more stripy, wouldn't you say? Hmm? Yeah, you're right. I think in this case you'd have to call it the Striped Band, wouldn't you? You both see and observe with distinction. However, do you not think it is precisely the trap into which the culprit wishes you to fall? No. My goodness, really? It's a trap? Right, a trap. How? Okay. I think perhaps it is time I explain the intricacies of my train of thought. Time to dance. Are you ready, Miss Pavlova? I'm sorry for the young man who died, but that is all. His death has nothing to do with me. This whole thing has nothing to do with me. There are two conclusions I have drawn from the facts. Number one. Last night, your friend infiltrated the victim's cabin. Number two. That same friend was responsible for the victim losing his life. No. She turned as white as a bowl of rice again. She was also that white before, too. That's fine. Fine. She must be right. He's hit the nail on the head. This young woman's friend killed Mr. Asogi? Are you saying words? Looks like he can't speak with that snake quote around his head. Oh no! What have we done? But advise as little movement as possible, Seaman. You wouldn't want the fangs of that long friend in your neck. So everyone, let us begin our dance. Herlock Sholmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. The game is afoot. And he's going to need a hand. Miss Pavlova, moments ago you claimed the following. His death has nothing to do with me. This whole thing has nothing to do with me. Yet you cannot deceive yourself. Yes, when you recall those horrid events, your aching heart smarts with pain. And it is that very pain that evidences your inextricable link to the victim's death. So, we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that stole into the victim's cabin on that portentous night? I mean, last night? Why, naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded this vessel, was it not? Ah, as I suspected, another telltale glance. Without doubt, your friend is the writhing serpent we see before us. Did she get on the boat with the seaman? And yet, that fact leaves us in a quandary. Yeah, because he didn't react when we came in here and it was Miss Pavlova. Despite the fact that previously he'd been telling us it was a gentleman. So he was not shocked by the fact that she is who was in this room. Okay. The victim's written observations of the night in question tell of a speckled band. Stop it, Snick. Thank you. Whereas, regrettably, this specimen's markings do not fit that description in any way, other than being a band. What explanation can we then give, pray? What was the sight that fell upon the victim's eyes last night? What are you reaching for? No, don't look at me. This has nothing to do with any of this. Oh, but it does. We have the answer to this quandary even now, hidden behind your back. Yes, that which you're trying but failing to conceal can only be the snake's sloughed skin. Evidently, after that subtle and horrible crime, this most deadly friend of yours shed its original skin, no? I wouldn't change it from speckled to striped. I don't know what you are talking about. Last night, through the ventilator visible in this cabin, your then speckled friend slithered next door. Using the bell cord on the other side as a bridge, the serpent silently descended into the victim's quarters. In the dim light, it appeared to be to the young gentleman who was about to lose his life as a speckled band. In summary, the nature of this friend of yours, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a rare breed of snake whose markings change each time it sloughs its skin. I'm gonna go with no. Snake so dreadful, we can only imagine it would be found in the deepest depths of India. Okay. How Mr. Hasogi died. That barely fit. Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter, the grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life, and why? According to the data on which I have been apprised, it would appear there were no visible signs of injury. Huh. Also, if you were constricted to death, then there should be bruising from the constriction. Should still break that. Well, we'll find out. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by a terrible venom. You're bad at your job. Now, if we take that as fact, which is false, but that's fine, we can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime. Oh no, could there be? Yes, an examination of the deceased's body will prove the cause of death conclusively. More so, there's that piece of broken glass. The almost but not quite imperceptible puncture wounds left by the venomous fangs will seal the truth. Yes, the vestiges of the snake bite delivered by your terrifying friend. This makes no sense. The snake is not poisonous. There is no point in feigning ignorance, Miss Pavlova. After the incident, you endeavored to hide everything, didn't you? Aha! As you glance again. Now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right. You get the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that traveling case. Here's something on the desk again. When we first met in this cabin, it came to my attention that your case moved periodically. Your serpent assassin was restless inside, no doubt. You don't... It is telling that the victim made a note of a low whistling sound that he heard minutes before his end. That was your signal, was it not? The sound you would use to train your serpent friend. To train? Indeed. You'd put the serpent through the ventilator and wait. After a period, you'd summon it back with a whistle. You couldn't know if the animal had done its duty, so you would listen for signs of life next door. The victim appeared not to have been dispatched. You'd release the snake once more. Do you deny the snake has undergone such training? It's not true. It's not the right accent. Having slid through the ventilator and down the bell cord, the creature needed only to sink its fangs in once. And its venom would course through the victim's veins, ending his existence forever. That is the true nature of the Speckled Band that took the poor young man's life. There can be no doubt. My logic is infallible. There's like 12 problems. Thus concludes Herlock Sholm's great deduction of the Speckled Band. Interesting. I think the more important fact is that we've discovered this isn't a locked door mystery. Miss Pavlova has trained her pet snake as a killing machine. There on the floor, you observe a saucer of milk. The promise of food is the key to training any creature. Incredible. You solved the mystery! Amazing. Your great deduction really lives up to its name. So you know why Herlock Sholmes has become such a household name. Has it? Has it, though? My dear man, it was nothing remarkable. As the Russians say, I could have done it with one left hand. Is that a Russian saying? Can I venture an opinion, Mr. Sholmes? Please. But of course, what's on your mind? It's just about your deductions before. Some things don't quite make sense to me. I welcome questions as to my method, and will answer both loudly and proudly. Oh, well, good, because, well, first of all, snakes are egg-laying creatures, part of the reptile family. You are well informed, madam. And reptiles don't drink milk. Ah. I fail to see your point. It's really only mammals that like to drink milk, you see. And even then, most animals don't drink milk past when they're first born. And our cat almost threw up when we gave her a little taste of cream. So I'm not sure it'd be possible to train a snake using milk as a reward. No matter. No doubt Miss Pavlova used some other treat to encourage her pet to do her bidding. Milk was merely an example. The logic holds. Well, there's something else. Snakes have no ears. Okay. Ah. Yes, so I'm not sure it would really be possible to signal the snake by whistling. Like, just because they don't have external ears doesn't mean they don't have the ability to hear. Like, that's two different things. But madam, what are the tales from Arabia? Well, those are swayed from the swaying of the pipe, not the actual music played. Have you not heard of the snakes that dance to the sounds of a flute? perhaps the performers play their music in time with the snake's natural movements. Oh. I see. No hands, no feet, no ears? These creatures are so inept as to be practically useless! Rude. Hey, don't take it out on the snakes, Mr. Sholmes. There's one other thing. You have more? Snakes use the scales on their bellies to propel themselves. So, I'm not really sure that a snake could manage to climb up a flat bell cord like the one in these cabins. Then it should try harder. I don't think that's how science works. Please, don't be angry with me, Mr. Sholmes. The point is, even if the snake had gone through the ventilator to the next door cabin, it couldn't have come back without help. What I'm trying to say is that there are a number of reasons why it's difficult to imagine the snake could have had a part in this. Not the least of which the fact that it's not speckled. Poor Mr. Sholmes. Pump-a-num, say poor Mr. Sholmes. I think we need to step in and help again, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh no. You don't mean... Yes, we need to modify Mr. Sholmes' latest deductions, turn them into the great ones they ought to be. I feel like that was coming. Alright, let's give it a try. Just what I was waiting for. Mr. Naruhodo. Yeah, right. Okay. So, cast your eyes down to your wrists again. Huh? Can you just leave them off this time? Done it again, Mr. Sholmes. Hiccups are gone. Where'd they go? Fear not. I shall see they are restored after our work is done. I really wish you'd just leave them off. Alright. Now, everyone, from the top, let us begin. Sherlock Sholmes is proud to present his Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Volume 2. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. Miss Pavlova, moments ago you claimed the following. His death has nothing to do with me. This whole thing has nothing to do with me. Yet you cannot deceive yourself. Yes, when you recall those horrid events, your aching heart smarts with pain. It's like her hand is smarting with pain. She does have a pain expression on her face. Yeah, that's true. It's as though Kazuma-sama's death is weighing heavily on her mind. Yeah, you're not sure Mr. Sholmes read her quite correctly, is that right? Some other way to interpret her expression then? Yeah, her wrist hurts. Oh! Claw scratch from her cat. That's the one that's drinking the milk. No, it's from burps. Ooh, let's go back on the fridge. Oh, that's right. Ah, Naruhodo-san, look! Looks like a very painful wound. Looks like a cat scratch. Looks like a scratch from made by some kind of small animal. Fairly recently, too. Well, whatever scratcher doesn't appear to be around here.
Yes!
Yes, when you recall those horrid events, that claw scratch smarts with pain. Indeed, and simple observation reveals the wound is fresh. Miss Pavlova, did you in fact receive that scratch sometime last night? Huh. When I think about the young man who died next door, I feel so sad. And when I am sad, the pain from this wound is worse. And it is that very pain that evidences your inextricable link to the victim's death. So, we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that strolled into the victim's cabin on that portentous night? Why, naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded this vessel, was it not? Ah, as I suspected, the telltale glance. Without doubt, your friend is the writhing serpent we see before us. No, I'm gonna go with no. Seems likely that the scratch mark on the back of Miss Pavlova's hand was made by this friend of hers, doesn't it? Except snakes don't have claws. Do they? No, they don't. They don't even have hands or feet on which claws might grow. Well then, if that snake isn't her pet, what is? It's a trinity of this friend of hers. Follow her gaze, Naruhodo-san, so we'll find the answer. Yep, there's the picture. Really wanted to be the seaman. There's no doubt, is there? She looked in this direction. Traded Seaman Stroganov. Well, they do seem to be friends of sorts. I can't imagine how he could possibly fit through that ventilator. Don't forget that I managed to fit inside Kazuma's trunk when we first boarded the ship, right? I would ask what that proves, but I think an equivocal little smile would be more effective. Ouch. It's so cute! Oh, and look at this little bell on its thing, which is clearly a piece of broken... that was broken in the room. Oh, snake. Did the snake kill the kitty? The photograph in this frame. Something Miss Pavlova brought with her when she ran away. She's exceptionally beautiful, isn't she? Yeah, that's true. But personally, it's the little black creature she's holding that caught my eye. Maybe we'd better take a closer look at this. Look at the little cat Miss Pavlova's cuddling here. Oh, what a cute little kitten. Could vie with you, couldn't it, Naruhodo-san? With the blackest outfit? Black kitten. From the look of this picture, at least Miss Pavlova seems very attached to it.
Yes!
Without doubt, your friend is the little kitten we see before us. Yes, the scratch on the back of your hand makes that abundantly clear. Oh no. Oh yes. The whereabouts of this black kitten isn't clear, but what is clear is that you brought the animal with you when you ran away, didn't you? Huh. Darka is my best friend. Darka? That's cute. I couldn't leave her behind. Darka would appear to be a Russian blue. No, it's a cat. And yet, that fact leaves us in a quandary. The victim's written observations on the night in question tell of a speckled band. Whereas, regrettably, the specimen's markings do not fit that description in any way. What explanation can we then give, pray? What was the sight that fell upon the victim's eyes last night? No. Look at me, nothing. Derp, derp, derp. Oh, but it does. You have the answer to this quandary even now, hidden behind your back. Yes, that which you are trying but failing to conceal will only be the snake's soft skin. Did you see that? Yeah, I see it. She just took something out of her pocket and hid it behind her back. If she just left it in her pocket, no one would have ever known. Yes, ploys like that are Shulman's specialty. He was so cleverly forced her to reveal something. I thought deduction was his specialty. Maybe making me believe that was a ploy too. I don't know. Anyway, I find it hard to believe that that's the skin of a snake. It's definitely not. In which case, just what is Miss Pavlova hiding behind her back? Oh? Is that a whip? Is it a cat toy? It's got a handle. Well, it is speckled. Is it? It is a band, but what is it? It seems to be soft and fluffy. A piece of cloth of some sort? Looks like a handle at one end. Maybe a cat's toy. This sort is common in the West, apparently. How is that a toy for cats? Cats like to chase the band around and paw at it. Yeah, they do. Don't you pump and dump. Kittens in particular love that sort of play. Don't you pump and dump. Don't you love playing with fabric on a string? You only need to wave it in front of them, and they pounce to catch it. It sounds positively adorable. It is. Super cute.
Yes!
Yes, the thing you are trying but failing to conceal is, a cat's toy. Precisely! The true nature of the now infamous Speckled Band. And it was this toy that you dangled through the ventilator. You waved it around, I presume? Naturally, the victim could not fail to notice it. But why? For what reason? My dear boy, there can be only one answer to that. Because the cat had gone through there. After a feline friend disappeared through the ventilator into the neighboring cabin, Miss Pavlova attempted to use the speckled cat's toy to incite the creature to return. In summary, the nature of this friend of Miss Pavlova's, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a blithesome Russian blue breed of cat by the name of Darka. Got her. A truly troublesome feline young Darka is proving to be. She must be caged once found. You'll forgive us for borrowing the photograph of your pet, Miss Pavlova? Pumpernickel, what you doing? Get your mouse. It was after I gave her her food last night. That's when it happened. She scratched the back of my hand and ran up the bell cord. Before I could do anything, she had disappeared through the ventilator. Darka, she is so naughty. Well, I appreciate. I was real concerned there for a bit. They were literally just going to do the story of the Speckled Band. And I was gonna be like, it seems like a cop-out. Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter, the grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life, and why? According to the data of which I have been apprised, it would appear that there were no visible signs of injury. Huh. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by a terrible venom. Mr. Sholmes says is true. Nope. There are no signs of a wound anywhere on the Kazuma-sama's body. Yeah, but Mr. Sholmes seems to be unaware of one very important detail. You mean the fact that in order for there to be a venom, then there's to be a puncture? Or Kazuma wasn't poisoned. So it seems so. It seems the information he's missing now. Here you go.
Yes!
Can only be explained by the Postmortem Report. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by the Postmortem Report. Ah, yes, I knew it was one or the other. That's not helpful. Mr. Deductions, that's not helpful. His neck was... Indeed, the breaking of the cervical vertebrae is fatal. Only that Goliath would be strong enough to survive that. Seaman Stroganoff is some immortal freak, you know. The jury is out. Anyway? Nope, jury, back in, back in. Anyway, we have on good authority that the victim's neck was broken. Now, if we take that as fact, we can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime. Oh no, could there be? Yes, an examination of the deceased's body will prove the cause of death conclusively. Will it? It's because his neck was broken. In other words, he was probably struck by something. Or someone. It's a distinct possibility. So if yet, no weapon has been found, though. Presumably Darka didn't suddenly creep behind Kazuma and deal a fatal blow. Suppose it's possible that he had a fall and hit the ground awkwardly. Could have been a terrible act of misfortune that he broke his neck completely by accident. Yeah, bad fall could explain it. Not hard to believe Kazuma-sama, though. He's a clumsy man. I'm gonna fix this deduction somehow. See if they could explain what happened. I mean, you mean the fact that he clearly tripped over the cat? Can someone tell me how he tripped over the cat and broke his neck? Because that's, I feel like, is where we're at.
Yes!
Also, I think that's far from conclusive. Yes, an examination of the mark on the floor will prove the cause of death conclusively. This particular mark, so prominently visible next to the victim's body, is a deposit of shoe polish. Shoe polish? Indeed, positively identified by a little analysis device I constructed, which I carry now as a matter of course. Because of course. Yes, popping up, of course. Beeswax, tallow, and dye were my results. The undeniable ingredients of shoe polish. And the color of the polish is a perfect match to the color of Mr. Asogi's laced leather shoes. Looking at this mark, it's not hard to imagine what happened. For some reason, Mr. Asogi must have caught his foot at that point on the floor and tripped. Please, no. And, by a dreadful turn of misfortune, caught his neck against some immovable object as he fell to the floor. Suffering a fatal blow to the spine. The victim's vertebrae shattered, and in that instant, he lost his life. No! I don't know. I don't know anything about this. Is that really true, Miss Pavlova? What about the evidence left at the scene where Mr. Asogi lost his life? Yes, the facts are as clear as day to me. You did all you could to conceal the incriminating evidence. But now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that traveling case. I don't believe it. Someone saw him merely tripped over and now he's no more? Can't be true. I refuse to accept it. I know it's hard to believe, but the mark on the floor does seem to suggest that's what happened. All it shows is a scuff. In fact, I feel you'd be hard-pressed to trip and leave a scuff mark. But if this part of Mr. Shulman's deduction is right, Ms. Pavlova is trying to hide some evidence that would prove it. Here in this cabin, somewhere in the direction that she just cast her eyes. Where, I wonder? Oh, let's have a good look around. It must be here somewhere. This is a wastepaper basket. Perhaps all the first-class cabins have them? Presumably. But Ms. Pavlova only started occupying this cabin late last night. Presumably there's not much rubbish in there yet. And here's the other half of the bell. Oh, what's that? It's a broken piece of glass, isn't it? It looks so out of place. Yes, it is. I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. It looks familiar. Perhaps it's more than your mind simply playing tricks on you.
Yes!
That's right. You hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that wastepaper basket. Huh. Here we have a fragment of some intricate glass object, it would seem. One that has a familiar air, in fact. Precisely. We found another piece of broken glass on the floor in Mr. Asogi's cabin. And as you can see, the two pieces fit together perfectly. I mean, they're broken, but, you know. Oh no. So, Miss Pavlova, shall we consider what this tells us? Why would it be that that part of this glass object, which was evidently broken at the scene of the victim's death, should be found in the wastepaper basket in your cabin? Ah! You're well acquainted with this glass bell, are you not? I don't know. And that hushed Russian accent of yours won't save you this time, dear girl. Why? Because we have conclusive evidence linking you to the bell in question. What? Take it away, Mr. Naruhodo. Yeah. Evidence linking Miss Pavlova and the little glass bell, that would be the photograph with the cat.
Yes!
If you look at this photograph, you can clearly see, hanging from Darka's collar, the very glass bell in question. The truth has caught up with you, Miss Pavlova. The young man who lost his life last night did so after a truly inauspicious fall. And the cause of that fateful stumble? Your absent feline friend, Darka. Poor Pavlova. I couldn't tell anyone. I'm sorry. Death by tripping over a cat. Well, that's just lame. He wasn't even elementary. He wasn't even murdered. What are we doing? What are we doing, guys? Why don't you tell us now, Miss Pavlova? Tell us exactly what happened last night. It was a little after 1 in the morning. It was so late that I hadn't had time to feed Darka, so I gave her some food. And then, all of a sudden, she scratched me and jumped out of my hands. People do say that cats become very anxious and nervous in new environments. She was so fast, she disappeared through the ventilator before I could stop her. That is how you acquired the rather nasty wound on the back of your hand, I take it? Yes. I had read the, rules on the wall. I knew that I was not allowed Darka with me. Yes, modern science suggests that animals can carry infectious diseases. It's a precaution, really. So I listened and listened, trying to hear if there was some noise in the next cabin. It was very quiet. I was sure if someone was there, he must be sleeping. So at that point you thought it safe to try to lower the kitten back again? By dangling the end of the toy through the ventilator to the adjoining cabin. Darka always loves this toy. It didn't work. Nothing worked. I tried using her favorite toy, tried whistling to her softly, but nothing. She didn't return. So the faint whistling sound Kazuma wrote about in his diary was Miss Pavlova trying to retrieve her pet. Cats have a propensity to remain hidden in the shadows when frightened. Yes, so there was nothing else I could do. Just had to wait until she had calmed down. But then... Huh. I nearly passed out with shock. I heard her cry out and then... Oh, it was such a dreadful bang. Then afterwards, nothing. It was totally silent. Kazuma was... From the appearance of the brown mark on the floor, it seems likely that what you heard was the victim stepping on the glass bell and tripping up. This burial is a very large vessel, but even she can pitch and roll violently without warning. If Mr. Sogi was already off balance as a result of the ship lurching, the kitten got under his feet. A combination of unfortunate factors could easily have caused him to fall over. What became of the kitten afterwards? In the end, I managed to get her to come back through the ventilator. Yet Darka is nowhere to be seen. I must have forgotten to log my case. And now she's disappeared again. Gracious, that cat is as insufferably restless as I am. Well, he knows something about himself at least. When I woke this morning, I heard that a young man in the cabin next to mine had died. But I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone what had happened. I was too scared. scared that they would send me back. Oh, hold on a minute. What about the snake? Right, where is it? Where's the snake? If the snake isn't your friend, Miss Pavlova, then whose is it? Where did it come from? Stupid Stroganoff. What on earth is such a dangerous creature doing on board this ship? Yep. Oh, I didn't say? Snake is my friend. His name is Prosko? Hmm? What? What? That snake belongs to you? He escaped from cage when emergency alarm sounded. I was looking for him. Don't expect to find him in here. Yeah, let's not get into this cabin. But animals are not permitted on board. Ah, we're at sea for 1 year. You want to be so long without a close friend? Without someone who understands? That's a snake. Snake does not understand. Snake just snakes. Didn't you find someone a little more human who understands you better? But my dear burly fellow, a gargantuan venomous snake? Surely you can appreciate the danger you're putting everyone in. It's not venomous. It's a constrictor. With no venom. Huh? Broska does not have venom. He is harmless, very long, but very gentle. He's adorable, like Granny. Ha! I think you mean like a babushka. It's venomless. Get. Yes, now he is hungry, so he is in bad mood. But once I feed him, you will see big smile. And you feed him what? Milk? Ha! Like they say they milk chickens? Ridiculous. Snakes that drink milk are only in stupid stories. Roscoe eats mouses. Big, fat, round mouses. So... is that what the mousetrap in the passageway out there is for? Of course. How else can I catch my friend's favorite food? Buddy! Nothing says top of the food chain like the look in their eyes right now. Oh, poor Sholmes. The light has gone out of his goggles. It refuses to drink milk. It can't hear a whistle. It can't climb up a bell cord, and it's not even venomous. How the deuce did something so inept land a starring role? It's not my fault. I do not make up stories. My Prosko has nothing to do with this incident. So that's what happened. That's the truth behind my best friend's tragic death. Well, this is all depressing. Miss Pavlova? I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in. I do sympathize. But please remember this. The young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then no matter what the circumstances, I cannot forgive you. She's gonna cut her. Oh my gosh. But what are you talking about, Miss Mikotoba? What lies? Swova just confessed everything. Just a series of unfortunate events. An accident. But no great detective, Mr. Sholmes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth. But even I can see that was not the truth. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo?
Yup.
To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story. I'm sure of it. Just can't quite put my finger on it. I confess, I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any outstanding issues on this matter. Oh? I'm only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. Excuse you? I do hope you've not been finding your shackles too uncomfortable. Son of a nerve herder. Again. Especially as they're on your wrist as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port call. You were, Mr. Sholmes? Yes, but I overlooked one important detail. The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours. Was he not? Yeah? He was my closest friend. My freedom, even. In that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. Must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, whatever that may be. The key to this is the discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. Truth about how you really died. How that scene in your cabin really came to be. Oh, alright. Let's see what I can do. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. So then, shall we begin? Yes. Time for the final dance. What should we ponder first? Is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside. This is truly an unfortunate accident. Was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. We've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kit and then climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident.
Hold it!
Wait, let's just take a step back, shall we? Doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm going to have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Kazuma's cabin. It's undeniable. So that couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. This proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. Like... Is it the... Problem is it the fact that the Russian word for wardrobe was written when he should have died from breaking his neck on fall? Or, and thus couldn't have written the word, or is it the fact that the ship's log has had everything from the previous night deleted? I'm gonna go with Russian.
Yes!
Truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. It's a script. It's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means wardrobe. See what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language. Japanese, in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast. Okay, sure. That doesn't seem likely, but alright. It's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Sorry? What do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. And the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death. Which means, after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything else. Because he was already dead. It's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there if Ms. Pavlova told us was true. What? So Susanto-san has noticed it too, then. Putting the message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. A piece of evidence that proves there was no accident. In other words...
Yes!
the piece of bell. Piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. It's the glass bell the kitten had around its neck. I already know all about it. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell. So we didn't have a satisfactory explanation with... Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there's a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half of the bell end up back in here in this cabin? Yes, remember that we found the other half of the glass bell in that wastepaper basket. Would you care to explain that, Ms. Pavlova? Oh no. Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asogi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. And that same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Asogi's.
Hold it!
You're wasting time. Someone else was there? Da, of course. We know this.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about you moron.
Bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. There is no way in or out.
Oh, yes.
And only other person in cabin when young student died was you.
Yes!
It's true. I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside the cabin wardrobe, to be precise about the details. I don't know Russian. There's no way I would have left that message. Not would have. There's no way you could have left that message, to be precise about the details. Would you mind? Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, the person in question wrote the words wardrobe in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I had been asleep in there the entire time. And then, the same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen to the floor, for fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Sogi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Great question. Being half behind was always going to raise questions. Yeah, well, right. It was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. Good call. The single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light onto the floor there. Little wonder, then, that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. You all suspect me, don't you?
Hold it!
Oh my gosh! I understand his lines on his face now! It's from the snack. Oh my gosh. I feel dumb now. Seaman Stroganoff? Nina is a woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago, they noticed her dancing skill. She went away to join ballet company. But before, she was dancer on Nice ship, a member of ship's band. You don't accuse ship's angel of being criminal. Ah, so that's it. You say that when young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. That is not possible. I give my tooth. Please don't give me your tooth. Well, this is all most interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure? You are a great detective. You should know. Because you were the one in there? Look truth in eye. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into cabin. Not Nina, not anyone. Or do you want to tell me that killer can walk through locked doors? Niet. It's impossible. Ugh. Right. But wait, what about this in detective stories? People often tie thread around door latches so they can open and close them from the outside. How about... Guys, can we just... Come on. Red? Are you stupid? These bulkheads are not the barn doors. Certainly not. These are watertight doors as one expect to find on any modern steamship. Constructed of heavy steel with not a gap in sight. No threads, or needles, or magnets could have been used. No. No, of course not. I thought so too. That's fine. Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so... Susanto, how could you shift it onto me like that? Steven Stroganov has a valid point. The cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside. Not necessarily. What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. And in this very cabin, we can see the traces of the method I have in mind having been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? Way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside. One way does spring to mind, yep. You know what Mr. Sholmes means? Yeah. They did it like 20 minutes ago. Or an hour ago, I don't know how long it's been now. Yes, you should, and so should you. Because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? About the telling signs of the method that was used to slide the cabin door bolt across from the outside.
Yes!
Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over? What must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before? Yes, that's right. It's a very powerful vessel, after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe, yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia acting on the objects. Okay. Is there nothing Susanto doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book, at least? Well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over those books on the bookcase also made something else in the cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. Gasp. It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We come into this cabin not long before, we hadn't bolted the door. But then... Is anybody in there? Shout if you need assistance! Oh, it sounds like... Inspector Hasanaga! Oh, yes! That's it! When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door. Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. Or the force of Inertia, or if you want to call it that. Are you trying to say that last night, after Mr. Asogi was killed, Slink. Has this Buria made another emergency stop? When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, thought it looked a little odd. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments. It's almost as if someone had run their hand across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over. Yeah, I remember that. I stood them all up again, didn't I? Then, when we came to this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over. Just like in Mr. Asogi's cabin. Oh my! Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Pavlova? Are you out of your mind? You say Buria made emergency stop? Does seem a little far-fetched. How could that possibly have happened? Unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room? Oh, it is simple enough. You're forgetting the button in the passageway outside? Used to trigger the emergency alarm? Oh yeah, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there? Telling you only to press the button in times of emergency. On dark nights when the fog is dense, the captain cannot afford to rely on the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow any crewman to raise the alarm. The sort of button one is almost compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity. Wait, it was you? When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interest of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings and the vessel comes to a complete stop. As indeed it did a little earlier today. Ha. Mr. Sholmes. Surely it wasn't you who... As I always say, a button has but one purpose in life. To be pressed. Whatever the occasion. Oh, okay. Sounds almost proud of himself. How dare you mess with sheep? I report you to Captain. You're in much trouble now. Now, I'm sure all that can wait till later. let us not overlook the fact that we have now learnt a valuable lesson. When the vessel makes an emergency stop, the bolts on the cabin doors slide closed. So, we must now consider... Yes, it all comes down to one thing now. Last night, after what happened to Mr. Asogi, did the ship make an emergency stop, or did it not?
You are idiots. Buria's huge ship with many passengers. If we make emergency stop, even in middle of night, there'll be chaos everywhere.
What are your thoughts, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, it's certainly possible that some kind of emergency happened last night. We have evidence to support that idea.
Really?
Evidence, Mr. Naruhodo?
Fascinating. Do show us, my good man.
This promotes the theory that some emergency gripped this vessel last night.
The logbook.
I think is the right answer.
Yes!
Steven Stroganov, it's your duty to patrol the first-class area of the ship, isn't that right?
Da. That is correct. Why?
The ship's log here. This would be where you record the details of your duties.
What are you doing with that? That is mine.
You rather carelessly left it atop the little makeshift bureau in the passageway out there. But as responsible passengers, we took it into our care with a mind to return it to you later.
I left it there on purpose. That is where I put it always.
Point is, looking at what you usually record, it's clear that under normal circumstances, you write the phrase "nothing to report" every 30 minutes. But from 2 o'clock last night until first light this morning, nothing was recorded at all. Nothing recorded in the log.
That is... Da. Because nothing happened.
But if nothing happened, you would normally write "nothing to report," wouldn't you?
Got him now. Old boy's against the ropes.
Indeed so, which tells us that shortly after 2 a.m., something happened here aboard the SS Beria. Something sufficiently significant to make you forget to fill in the ship's log, in fact. Are you suggesting the ship really did make an emergency stop in the middle of the night?
Stop talking rubbish.
If I'm perfectly honest, I find that a little hard to believe myself. Oh? And why is that? Well, because if something as major as an emergency stop really had happened, surely all of us would have noticed. It's very true. You can see the emergency stop we experienced earlier. You don't know what it feels like now. The ship lurched so violently. The alarm bell was so loud. I can't imagine that anybody would sleep through that, even if it happened in the dead of night. No, that's a good point. What of the throbbing? Phrasing. Sorry. What do you mean? Your head, man. The throbbing of your head since this morning. We've all suffered with it. Gasp. Oh, yes. I've had a headache, you're right. In fact, I've been feeling myself since I woke up today. Or have I? My head has been feeling heavy ever since dawn. Yes, you've all been afflicted, haven't you? Just as I suspected. Yeah, he's right. I was throbbing today too. Since eating dinner yesterday evening, everything has felt sort of hazy. I can't really remember anything that happened after I climbed back inside the wardrobe. The first thing I noticed this morning was a throbbing pain in my head. I'd already been dragged out of the wardrobe and had those handcuffs put on me by that point. Why didn't I wake up when all that was happening to me? Who's dosing our food? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo. You boarded this vessel as a stowaway, didn't you? Oh, yeah. Sorry. The stowaway class of accommodation doesn't usually include meals. What did you survive on? Oh, well, Kazuma looked after me. He's always happy to share his meals. So you enjoyed some of the whole roast chicken dish that was served yesterday evening, I take it? Yeah, it's pretty good. I had all that. Kazuma wasn't fond of chicken. Oh, really? So the victim didn't eat any of the chicken at all? Yeah, he didn't touch it. Is that relevant? Yeah, because everybody got dosed with some sleeping agent. My dear fellow, does that not strike you? Mr. Sholmes, do you mean to say you have another deduction? There was something wrong with the chicken? Not wrong, per se. I do. No? Really? Is it really true? The meal prepared for the passengers last night had been tampered with. Tampered with by the addition of a soporific, designed to induce a very deep slumber in those who consumed it. A sleeping drug. Do you mean whoever did this laced every meal with a sleeping drug? So no one would notice the ship's emergency stop? What? Mr. Naruhodo, of course it's not what Mr. Sholmes means. What a far-fetched idea. Precisely. Placing every meal of every passenger on board with a soporific drug would certainly be impossible. Unless, that is, every single member of the crew was a conspirator. Gasp. Well, seaman? Sorry to say that any more deception in this matter will get you nowhere. If you refuse to talk, there would have to be an inquiry made through the shipping company, of course. And were that to happen, every member of the crew, and the captain himself, would be hauled over to the coals. The coals. For aiding and abetting a renegade. Please, no more. We'll tell everything. Eh? I cannot make problems like this for everyone anymore. These crewmen are your former comrades, I believe? Yes. So when I decided to run away, I asked them to help me. We all agreed to help. Everyone together. She threw away everything. Her fame in the ballet, Mother Russia. We wanted to help our angel. I don't believe it. You are right. We put the sleeping drug in chicken last night. Yes, I remember now. Didn't notice chewing on something strange and bitter at one point. Duh. We could not make old drug. How do you say?
dissolve. Ugh, wow, heavy seasoning. At the midnight, in waters near Shanghai, we brought our angel on board. She was helped by comrade on shore with a small fishing boat. But all the passengers of the SS Beria slept soundly, thanks to the almost magical effects of the slumber-inducing potion the evening meals contained. So, if that's what happened, the people awake on the ship last night were the crew, people who just like chicken, and the newly boarded passenger, Miss Pavlova. And that means it would have been possible for you. You could have used the emergency stop trick to lock Kazuma's cabin door. But how does that make sense? Surely every cabin door would have ended up locked in that case. There would have been complete chaos. Oh? I wouldn't say so. Huh? Of course. Just like us, all the other passengers would have eaten their evening meal of chicken in their cabins. After which they would have been overwhelmed by tiredness because of the sleeping drug. Quite. And accordingly, all passengers were already in their cabins for the night. Bum ba bum! The overwhelming majority of passengers would habitually sleep with their cabin doors bolted anyway. And so not one of them would have found it remarkable to find the cabin door locked in the morning. In summary, in order to fasten the bolt of a single cabin door on the ship, the culprits brought the entire vessel to an emergency stop in the early hours of the morning. You have talked a long time and said many things. What is point? The point is what I said earlier. There was somebody else present on the scene when the victim lost his life last night. Someone who left a message in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate another. Someone who tried desperately to hide the broken fragments of glass that would reveal the culprit's identity. And someone who abused the ship's emergency stop procedure in order to lock a door. All told, a busy night. But... I don't know about any of this. I am just a little girl. You like to speak with your long English words and explain your clever ideas. But I am a sailor, and sailors don't listen to long, boring stories. We don't believe. Sailors like me trust only what we see with our eyes. Cool. A laudable trait. What? I'm quite of the same disposition, my good man. Observation to me is everything. Mr. Naruhodo? Yep. Do you hear it? The accusatory cry of guilt on the wind. Accusatory cry of guilt. Sorry, you lost me on that one. Proof of involvement, man. But you can't hear such a call with your ears. No, you must hear it with your eyes. Observation is the basis of all deduction. What are you talking about? I believe the time has come for one final logic and reasoning spectacular to expose the truth. Mr. Sholmes, we have 10 minutes. You have to pick up the pace. So, Mr. Naruhodo, your assistance if you please. What exactly, Mr. Sholmes? Observation, my dear fellow. Just as I said, these two prevaricators. Yep, that's so much more. Is that provocateurs? Oh, whatever. Observation. If you remember, Mr. Naruto, you know that somebody tried to fabricate evidence, don't we? By tampering with the scene of Mr. Asogi's death? I'm looking for some trace of evidence that one of these two Saren happened. Precisely. You're delightfully quick to grasp my meaning. Alright, so I can see. Just looking for a trace of evidence that shows someone else was there last night when Kazuma died. Oh. Those petite ears and that beautiful hair, like little pink shells. What's that? Something attached to her ear. I suspect that's what's called an earring. A little piece of jewelry, you know? Earring, is it? I think it's tiny. Which part is missing? It's broke off? What's left is the clasp part that attaches to the ear. That's the case. Which doesn't appear to have noticed that it's broken. That could be useful. Aha! There it is. The ink stain. Oh, look at this. What kind of stain? In an unusual place. Right, it's like ink if I'm not mistaken. Ink. Look at the color too. Let's see where this came from. Yep. Oop. Where's the inner pocket? Okay, let's...
Yes!
Boom. Seems Stroganoff? You seem to have quite a large purple stain on the back of your white uniform there. Eh? Ah, yes, I don't know where the dirt comes from. So nothing in particular comes to mind about the stain? What are you trying to say? It would appear that the significance of the stain has escaped your attention, Seaman. Let's make it plain. There's a very large purple stain on the back of Seaman Stroganoff's uniform. I think what made it is clear. Indeed it is. So, Mr. Naruhodo, present the evidence that proves it. My pleasure. This proves the stain on the back of Seaman's uniform really is...
Yes!
Yeah, Edith's crime scene photo. Yes, it's this photograph, and the ink it shows. That's what caused the stain on your uniform. Ink? Rather unusual color of ink, purple. Ah, the penny drops, at last. And now you see the significance. A Russian word on the floor next to the victim's body was written in purple ink. The stain on the back of your uniform is ink of exactly the same color. If the ink had been dry, it could possibly have stained your uniform in that way. Which means... you must have been present in the cabin in the moments immediately after the ink was spilt. Alright, yes. It was me. I did it. Everything. I arranged everything in dead student's cabin to make it look like wardrobe man did it. Then I pressed button to make Buria do emergency stop and bolt cabin door shut. I did everything so no one would suspect our angel.
Biff, please.
Don't worry, Angel. Let me do talking. It was after 1 in the morning. I was on duty patrolling passageway. And our angel came to me. She was white like sheet.
Biff, please. You must help me.
Went with her. Thought cabin number 1 was open. When I looked inside, saw student boy on floor. What happened here?
Please, please don't tell anyone. My little one, my little furry friend.
Everything that happened in cabin is like Angel told you.
Kitten escaped through the ventilator into Mr. Asogi's cabin. He tripped over it and broke his neck when he fell to the floor.
Yes, this is right.
Just after the incident, when the cat ran away, Miss Pavlova then visited the cabin next to hers. Only to find its occupant lying lifeless on the floor. She said she was worried when she heard the sound of something falling on the floor. That's when she went to look.
No, Angel?
The door was not locked. So she opened to look and you already know what happened after. Just one thing, if you wouldn't mind.
What?
You went to Mr. Asogi's cabin, Miss Pavlova. Was he already dead? Why?
I already told you. When Nina opened the door of student's cabin and looked inside, I was asking Miss Pavlova.
Well, Miss Pavlova? Da. Oh. Yes, that is right. I saw him. It was dark and he was wearing black, but he was on the floor, not moving. I was scared. I understand. And I believe you. So is that finally it now? We discovered the real truth about Kazuma's death at last. Ah, something very nearly slipped my mind. Word. Mr. Sholmes? This photograph? Yes, I took this myself, you know. Okay. Cause of death was a broken neck. Therefore, the victim died instantly. In the unfortunate incident then that precipitated these events, a kitten on which the victim stumbled. However, if those are the facts, there is one particular area in this photograph that seems to me somewhat unnatural.
What do you mean, unnatural?
Yep. What are your thoughts on the matter, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, well... Mina's hand that's clutching something, apparently? I think which part of this photographic print seems unnatural.
Yes!
Alright, if he really fell due to an unfortunate accident, then this fist just doesn't seem quite right.
The exact same thought occurred to me. In a fall, one's instinct is to open the palms flat. Yet here we see the victim with his left hand tightly balled into a fist. Almost, you might say, as though he were gripping something. Like a earring, perhaps? What do you mean? Something that I took the liberty of investigating the victim's fist a short while ago. Really? Wait until now to tell us? What, pray, do you imagine I found there, my dear fellow? Mr. Sholmes, show us, please. Why, of course, my dear madam. Would I keep you in suspense? Yes. Yup. This is what I found. Crescent moon with a little gemstone in the middle. Yes, you're right. Crescent moon. It's very pretty. What does it tell us? It tells us nothing. I'm not so sure. This moon looks familiar somehow. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere before. Observation, Mr. Naruhodo. That is the key. Huh? Truth is now tantalizingly close. Does it come to be in Kazuma's clenched fist? It's easy. This is the final clue, the last piece of the puzzle. Ask yourself, what does this little crescent moon mean? What significance has it? Observe. Find the answer with your own eyes.
Yes!
The right ear. Miss Pavlova, I noticed that on your ear, even though you have a metal earring, the decorative part of it seems to be missing. The little link holding it on must have broken, I suppose. Huh? What? But looking at your other ear, I notice a crescent moon. I don't believe it. Now, the missing crescent moon was found in the victim's clenched fist. Clearly, there's only one logical conclusion. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah. Miss Pavlova? Mr. Sogi must have grasped that crescent moon and pulled it from your ear. Perhaps just moments before he fell to the floor. In other words, last night, in Mr. Sogi's cabin, you witnessed the moment when the victim fell with your own eyes. In fact, you were quite literally at arm's length from him. Then the question is, why did Mr. Asogi do that? Why did he pull your earring from your ear and hold it in his clenched fist during his final moments? Oh no. Angel? No one can protect you now. Please, Miss Pavlova, tell us the truth. Last night, what did you do to Kazuma? We got her. When I think about everything that happened yesterday, it was too much. Running away, the fishing boat in the middle of the night, trying to climb onto this huge ship. And then I was at last in the cabin. I could relax after this horrible long day. Tarka, wait! Couldn't believe it when she disappeared through the ventilator. Tried to call her with a little whistle. I tried waving her favorite toy. Nothing worked. Our girl would not come back.
doing here at this time of night, Inspector? Oh. I'm sorry. I thought it was a friend of mine. The young man from your country. He was very polite and kind. He helped me to find Darka, and he promised not to tell anyone. But you couldn't take that chance. But then, I had my friend in my arms again. I was going to leave the man's cabin. Just a moment. Sorry, but... Yeah, Bob. Oh, yes? I'm sure I know your face. I've seen you somewhere before. Ah. Ah, of course. You're Nikolina Pavlova, aren't you? The Russian ballerina? Huh? No. I don't know that name. My heart nearly stopped when he said that. He knew who I was. How could this man from a land in the faraway east know a Russian ballerina? Yes, I saw your performance in Japan. You, the ballet, made a deep impression on me. But what are you doing on this ship? I'm sure I read that your ballet company was performing in Shanghai at the moment. I can't fool him. I tell him the truth, and hope he doesn't tell anyone. I have no other choice. I see. So you've run away. Please, please keep my secret. Don't tell anyone. Give me a moment. I'll use another opinion here. He's going to pull that cord. He's going to tell the captain. I think I could trust him. Then it happened. Everything at once. It was only a second, but felt like forever. Wait! I shouted, and then... Darka jumped out of my arms and down to the young man's feet. And... as he turned around to look at me... Oh! I pushed him. Girl! Don't even know why. I don't know why I did it. I was just so scared. And I had to stop him from telling anyone about me. That's when you went to fetch help? Seaman Stroganoff, who was on duty out in the passageway. I heard Nina cry out and thud on the floor, so I ran to her. She was standing at the cabin door, shaking like a leaf. She looked at me and said, "Help me, Beef. If they find out, I will be... Please, I have nowhere to go." So you decided to help. And that's when you arranged things because it was cabin to make it look like I did it. So no one would suspect the passenger in the cabin next door. Yes. I went into cabin and I looked around to make sure that there was nothing to show Nina was there. And I found stowaway. In wardrobe, still sleeping. Right. That's when he found me. So he worked out a plan to lay the blame on the stowaway. I closed the wardrobe's doors and put back strange paper sign. Luckily for me, that's the only reason Susanto-san started to believe me when I said I was innocent.
I dragged young man's body to good place, used ink that was spilling to write on the floor. I wrote... I can't read that. So the person who found him would look inside wardrobe and find stowaway. And tell me, what of the glass bell? It was by my feet, so I picked it up. I see. It was dark in the cabin. Didn't notice the other half. Then Angel went back to her cabin and I finished the job by pressing the emergency alarm button in the passageway. Yes. Accordingly, the SS Buria did indeed come to an emergency halt at a little after 2 a.m. thus enticing the bolt on the cabin door to slide shut, creating the locked room mystery. Where did she go? There's still one thing I don't understand, Miss Pavlova. What? Well, you said that you told Kazuma about the fact that you'd run away from your homeland. It's because you were worried he was going to tell the captain that you pushed him. Isn't that right? Yes. But if he had pulled the bell cord and called for the captain of the ship, weren't you friends with every member of the crew? Why would that have been a problem? It was what he said first that made me scared. He said first. What are you doing here at this time of night, Inspector? Oh. Sorry. Thought it was a friend of mine. He said an inspector was his friend. Ah, yes, meaning me. I'm supposed to be acting as his bodyguard. Thought if police knew about me, they would arrest me. So before he pulled the bell cord, May I stop you a moment, please, Miss Pavlova? It just doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, was Mr. Asogi really going to pull the bell cord? Oh no. What? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? He's gonna ask me, obviously. Well, I'm not Kazuma, so I can't really know for certain, but he's a man of his word. If he told you he wouldn't give your secret away, then he wouldn't have done. No, he's walking over to it. He's going to pull the cord. He's going to make them send me back. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, the day's work is not yet done, it seems. There's one more deduction to make. What? Another one? My gosh, man, I want to go to bed. Yes. What action was the victim really about to take at that moment? Can we determine whether the young man's gaze was directed? First, consider the victim's location in his cabin. It's easy. Remember every detail of that room. I mean, yeah, I spent quite a lot of time in the wardrobe. But still, the cabin has been my home for this entire voyage. So this is how the cabin looked last night when Miss Pavlova visited Kazuma-sama? Yeah, that's exactly how it was. You ready then, Mr. Naruhodo? Yep. There's one thing I've learned today. It's that a simple gaze can reveal all manner of truths. Not only that, in order to draw the right conclusion, you can only afford to be out by you can't afford to be out by even a little bit when you're following the gaze to where it lands. So, when he turned away from Miss Pavlova, what exactly was Kazuma looking at? Easy. The wardrobe.
Take that!
Considering everything that had happened last night, it certainly may have looked as though Kazuma was going to ring the bell cord. Yes, however, what is directly beside the bell cord? The wardrobe. The wardrobe? And more importantly, what was inside the wardrobe? The man's great friend, sleeping soundly. Yep. Miss Pavlova, please, think back very carefully. What were Mr. Sogi's exact words last night? Give me a moment. I can use another opinion here. Another opinion? Yes, but not from a member of the crew. No, Mr. Sogi intended to consult his close friend on the matter. To see if between them they might be able to help in some way, no doubt. Oh no. Sadly, I can't know the truth for certain now. It's too late for that. I wish you had made sure of what Mr. Sogi was looking at. Things may have ended very differently if you had. Wow. Killed a man for no reason. Miss Pavlova, I want to thank you for finally admitting the truth. But unfortunately, the truth is a man lost his life because of what you did. And that will never change. I hope you'll never forget that. I'm sorry. Really, I'm so sorry. Yeah, Palm. What have I done? And so, at long last, the mystery surrounding the tragic accident on the SS Buria was finally laid to rest. What will happen to Miss Pavlova now, then? Once we reach Great Britain, she'll be handed over to the British police at Scotland Yard. What about the fact that she ran away from Russia? Won't the Russians try to repatriate her? Apparently the English detective can speak to the immigration office and sort all that out. Mr. Sholmes can do that? Really? She won't be going back to Russia, then? No, I don't think so. But if she wanted to return in the future, I doubt she would be able to. She ran away, so now she's in exile for life. I see. I'm sorry. See, Miss Stroganoff? I wanted to help our angel, no matter what. But I didn't think about you. Now you lost a good friend. We'll go with Nina. I would give myself to British police. It's kind of you. In the meantime, thank you for letting me go free again. Simon's death feels like such a waste, but... well, do what you can for Miss Pavlova, won't you? Duh. Well, we need to pack now. Due to arrive in Hong Kong tomorrow. As much as it pains me, I'm gonna have to hand you over to the consul to arrange your passage back to Japan. Yes, I know. Did stow away after all. Couldn't really expect any different. So, you should get back to your cabin now. Looks like my study tour to Great Britain is over before it even began, then. I think that only days ago, Kasum and I were laughing together about how we'd tear up the streets of London. Seems like a distant memory now. Oh, what's that? Is it someone weeping? No. Susanto-san? Naruhodo-san? I didn't know you'd returned. Oh. I've been back long? Inspector Hasanoga just told me I should pack, you know. Ready to leave the ship tomorrow and all that. I still can't believe this happened. I can't believe someone's life can be over. Just like that. Sato-san. I had such grand ideas for this visit to Great Britain. So many dreams. Now they've been cruelly taken away. Just as he has. I thought I could never forgive the person responsible. But now I know the truth. It was just an accident. Just a silly series of mishaps. It's too much, Naruhodo-san. It's just too much. Yeah, I know. Wish there were something I could say. Oh, dang it. Took a guess, I thought it was Sholmes, whatever. Inspector. My duty was to see Asogi-san safely to Great Britain. But I failed. And caused his two closest friends great pain and suffering as a result. Let everyone down. I will do anything to make up for my terrible blunder. Nobody blames you, Inspector. Kinda hard for you to have stopped it. And I'm free again now. Huh? Surprise, Mr. Naruhodo! What the heck, man? Oh, a trifling matter. Simply that in my head I shall always picture you wearing those shackles. Without them, the balance seems all wrong. It's distracting. I'm sorry. Can you just take them off, please? I decided to restore them, for old time's sake, shall we say? You are a stowaway, after all. Thinks this is funny? I'm gonna punch him in the face. Mr. Sholmes. I do appreciate all your assistance. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Not at all, not at all. I know it's a little late. I offer my sincere condolences. The loss of your companion is truly heart-rending. I hope that you will be able to fulfill some of his aspirations in his honor. Bob, are you chasing your tail? I'm afraid that won't be possible. We should be disembarking at the next port, in Hong Kong. After return to Japan and make a full report about everything that's happened. What? Oh, wait a minute. It's just me that has to go back, isn't it? I mean, I was the stowaway. Terms of the study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. There was to be one lawyer and one assistant. Was to be. In light of Mr. Sogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. What if I was the lawyer? Oh no. I don't care for me, but... Poor Susanto-san. Dear fellows. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know? All you require is one lawyer, and the study tour can continue. Surely? I guess I apparently didn't read that whole thing. There's no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know of no other lawyer. Qualifications, you say? Any qualifications obtained in your country will be of little value in Great Britain, I'm afraid. Oh, but anyway, the voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. Yes. Mr. Sato? Yes? Do you think perhaps I could do it? You're not a lawyer, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, unless... Are you studying law? No. But... I'm sorry. In that case, I don't think there's even a chance it could work. As I said, there is still more than a month before we reach England's shores. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah, I have a month in which to study. To learn what I must become a lawyer in Great Britain. Mr. Naruhodo. It's ridiculous. Are you seriously suggesting anybody could learn all of that in just 40 days? So, one way to find out. My fingers to the bone, Inspector. Every single day. Will you let me at least try? And if by the time we reach Great Britain I haven't learned enough to be recognized as a lawyer, I'll take whatever punishment is deemed appropriate. But why put yourself in such a difficult position? For Kazuma. He said that there was something he had to do in Great Britain, and that he would sacrifice anything to make it happen. He was passionate about it. You can't let all that passion just come to nothing. Anyway, it's for my own benefit too. I will become a lawyer. I have to. What do you say, Miss Susato? Aww. I think it's a wonderful idea. Aww. Thank you. So, what does our bespeckled inspector friend say? Are you serious? One lawyer and one assistant. The numbers are indisputable. No, no, no. It's madness. Yet fascinating, wouldn't you agree? Fascinating. Duty and rules of the dull routine of existence that we all abhor. Give us interest. Give us fascination. Speak for yourself. Besides, Qualifications are no measure of a man. No, what matters is his character, no? You've witnessed ample evidence of this man's exemplary character today with your own eyes. From the early hours of this morning until this very moment now. Despite contending with the passing of his close companion, despite the accusation of guilt, this man has shown resourcefulness, intelligence, and above all, courage. Very well. I think of a clever way to word my report to the Department of Justice. Inspector! After all, I just make a promise, didn't I? So that I do anything at all to make up for my shortcomings here.
Oh, thank you, Inspector. Thank you, Scrooge Jones.
You'll excuse me, I must pay a visit to the captain's quarters, I think. Need to discuss what to do next, how best to make my report. Are you prepared to attempt this, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah, gonna try at least. I wonder. Would you consider teaching me what I need to know? Anything about being a lawyer? I'd be delighted to help you. I am a judicial assistant after all. She's so cute. Thank you. And, Mr. Naruhodo? I'd like you to take charge of this. Aww. Okay. I'm sure it's what Kazuma-sama would have wanted. Its name is Karuma. It's a great sword that's been the Asogi clan for generations. Very well. I accept. I'll treasure it always. So then, Miss Susanto, it seems we'll be working together for some time to come yet. It'll be an honor, Mr. Naruhodo. And for the next 40 days, I shan't grant you a single minute of freedom. Shall fill every spare moment with study. Yes, it's exactly what I need. I'm gonna die. It's fine. But before we begin, I have an earnest favor to ask of you too. Come on. Goodness, what is it? Please throw me to the ground. 3 times. Kinky. Alright. What? I should never have doubted you. You were Kazuma-sama's closest friend. Of course you would never have done anything to hurt him. It should have been obvious to me from the start. But I allowed suspicion to get the better of me. No matter how upset I was feeling, it was completely unforgivable behavior. Nope, you were in shock, it's fine. You just found out about me stowing away. The cabin door was locked from the inside. Nope! I won't let you make excuses for me. Remember the circumstances, I should never have thrown you. Not just once, but 5 times. 5 times? Number keeps creeping up, doesn't it? Please, you must. Take hold of me and throw me. Do it. Don't even think about it. Throw you on the bed? Like, nope. Don't even know how. Never thrown anyone in my life. Not doing it. Very wise, Mr. Naruhodo. This is a skill one acquires without considerable training. Oh, Mr. Shelms, you're still here. Observed your throwing technique several times with great interest. I confess I was most impressed. Did he see it? I presume that would be a form of Japanese wrestling? Oh, well, in a way. It's not wrestling, but my own interpretation of an ancient jujitsu technique. Apparently it's called the Susanto Takedown. Use your head swimming, believe me. How beguiling. I'm a practitioner of the combative arts myself. I'm a somewhat accomplished boxer. Are you boxing? Or are you trying to roll out the taffy? Like, I don't know what's happening here. There he goes, dancing around again. I wonder if you'd be so kind as to instruct me on the technique of your arresting throw. Yes, I'd be honored. Let us not dally. Demonstrate, my dear madam. Oh, of course. Nope, not on me. Gonna do it on me. You ready, Mr. Naruhodo? No. Gosh, dang it. Sorry, what? That seems right. This feels right. So you can see you throw from the abdomen. Oh yes. Arresting indeed. That is what you term the Susanto Takedown, is it? Actually, no. That was a Susanto Squash. Okay. Whatever. My groggy state of consciousness? A scene from an evening recently spent with Kazuma flickered into my mind. Karuma. That's right. It's a prized sword that's been passed down through generations of the Asogi clan. I can't believe you managed to get permission to bring it with you. I mean, taking a katana on a study tour is more than a little irregular, surely. Don't call me Shirley. Japanese man's sword is his soul, Ryunosuke. Can you be parted for my katana? Kuruma guides me. I truly believe that.
Ball's over her being a butt. The change in the color makes it more muted. Means we're in a flashback. Also, the fact that he said, "I'm remembering a night I had recently."
So its name compels its wielder to slice evil in two? Not that you would need much compelling. On that subject, there's something very important that I have to do in Great Britain. And I'll sacrifice anything to make it happen. I appreciate you seeing it through with me. Of course I will. Whatever it is, I'll see it through to the end with you. I knew you wouldn't let me down. That important thing he had to do. I just don't know what that was. I'm going to see the place for myself and work it out. Great Britain's capital, London. Oh my word, there we go. Jeez. Save a current progress. Adventure of the Runaway Room. Adventure of the Unspeakable Story, The Hound of the Baskervilles. Okay, back out to the title screen. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, that went way longer than it was supposed to go. So,
that brings us to a close tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed it. Coming back tomorrow, presumably with some Pokemon Unite. So yeah. Look forward to seeing you guys then. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this stream is adjourned. Good night, everybody.